we are going to move on to solving rational inequalities. So rational is kind of what we've been working on, these rational functions that are fractions, but inequalities means that we have that like greater than or less than, all those type of things there. So we're going to determine where a rational function is either positive or negative, and that means above or below the x-axis. And then we're going to solve it and write it as like a statement. So when we do this, we're gonna kind of look at this, and here's my rational. It's rational because it's a fraction. We're gonna decide like where is this positive. So greater than 0 means where is it positive. So maybe you want to write that on your notes. So we want to know where it's positive. Okay. One way that you could do this would be to guess and check. And so what do I mean by guess and check? Well, where are the points that kind of mean something to us? So I'm going to call those critical points. And for this one, the critical points are at -2 and +2. So this is where the numerator equals 0. And this would be where the denominator equals 0. So those I'm going to call our critical points. So if I had a number line here, and I think about -2 and +2 are here, I could do a guess and check type of thing where I pick numbers on either side of this. So what if I pick a number over here? Let's pick -3. If I plug -3 in, do I get a number that's positive or negative? So let's try that. -3 plus 2 over -3 minus 2. So I get -1 over -5, which in reality is a positive number. So I'm going to say that numbers over here are all positive. Okay. Let's pick a number between -2 and 2. So I'm going to pick 0. So if I plug in 0, I get 0 plus 2 over 0 minus 2. And that is, let's see, 2 over -2, -1. So it looks like stuff in here is probably negative. So I'm going to pick a point over here. Let's pick +3. So frown for negative. And I've got 3 plus 2 over 3 minus 2 equals, I get 1 over 1, which is, 5 over 1, which is positive. So it looks like this stuff over here is also positive. At our critical points, we need to go back to this thing right here. Maybe I'll use red for this. These should both be open circles here at our points because I want where it's greater than. So I can include where it equals 0 or where it's undefined, and that would be at these critical points. This is where the whole function would equal 0, and this is where the whole function would be undefined. So we can't use those points. So one way to do this is guess and check. It's not the way that I think we're going to want to do it. So I'm going to show you a different way with the same example of the way I'd like you to go through these each time you do one. Okay, so I have a picture here on this one, and I'm going to list off some steps for you. So that each time you do this, you have an idea of what you need to do. So let me shrink this, and I'm going to write my steps over here, and then we'll come back to it. Okay, so my list. So the first thing on your list is going to be to list the critical points. List critical points. I know it's hard to read. List the critical points. So number 2 is going to be to draw the lines. Step number 3, list the factors in order is important. Step 4 will be to decide, and I'll go through all these again, if it's plus or minus. Step 5 is going to be to multiply. And 6 is going to be to rewrite. Okay, so I have these down, and then I'll go through them as we go through our example. All right, so step 1 was to list the critical points, and we practiced that already earlier. So I'm going to list my critical points in numerical order. So in numerical order means number 2 comes first, and then -2 comes first, and then it's +2. So the next thing I want you to do is to draw the lines. Now that's weird, but I have a number line up here for you, and you're going to put these on your number line where they would go. So -2, like that's 0 maybe. You only need to list the points that are your critical points. You could put a different point on there if you wanted to. And then draw the lines means that you're going to draw lines straight down from your point, like not between them, not next to them, but straight down from your point. Then you are going to list the factors, was the next thing, in the same order. So the factor that goes with -2 is this one, x plus 2. And the factor that goes with +2 is x minus 2. Now, you need to make sure you leave a little bit of space here because you're going to be kind of doing this here. Okay, so just like we did guess and check, you're going to pick a number to the left of -2. So I'm going to pick for myself maybe the number -3. And I'm going to plug -3 just into x plus 2. So x plus 2 would be -3 plus 2 is -1. I don't care what it is, but it is a negative number, so I'm going to put a negative mark there. In the middle here, I'm going to pick 0. 0 plus 2 is a positive number, so I'm going to put positive there. Then I'm going to pick a number out here, again, maybe -3, and I get a negative number. Okay, so that was step 4, decide plus or minus. I'm going to do it again, but with the next factor. So with x minus 2, I'm going to plug in -3. -3 minus 2 is a -5. It's a negative number. 0 minus 2 is negative, and -3 minus 2 is negative. Okay, so this was step 4 right here. Step 4. Step 5 is the multiply step. So that seems kind of funny, but what I want you to think about is when I multiply two numbers with the sign given, what do you get? So in this column here, let me see, I can have a little pointer if I can find where it is. Okay, maybe not. In this column here, I found it. If I have a negative times a negative, I would get a positive number. In this column here, a positive number times a negative number gives me a negative number. And in the last column, I have a negative times a negative, and I get a positive. Okay, now I'm going to decide what my circles should be like. Again, I'm coming back to here. These should be open at my critical points. And I want to know where it's positive. So I'm going to come down here. It's positive here. So I could scribble. I'm going to scribble on my number line this way. It's positive for all these numbers down this way. Okay, and then it's positive for all these numbers here because it's negative in between -2 and 0. Step number 6 is to rewrite. So I'm going to tell me, you're going to tell me that this function up here, this function is positive when I pick numbers that are less than -2 or numbers that are bigger than +2. So numbers that are less than -2 or bigger than +2. I also have a picture of the graph here. So if you're not ready, hit pause. I'm going to zoom in here. If I look at those critical points that we talked about, one of them is right here, and it's kind of hard to see. Okay, one of them is here, and the other one is probably not right there. Probably more like right here. Okay. When I look at these, I can see, for example, that when I'm going to grab my highlighter, sorry guys, when I am bigger than +2, look at this, I'm all above the x-axis. And then somewhere in here, I'm below, and then back over this way, I'm above the x-axis again. Here's another example where you don't have to factor because I already factored for you because I'm really, really nice. I listed all the factors for you here. So on some of these, you actually will have to factor. I want to find where this function is positive. Okay, so that's what's important to me this time. So the first step is to list all your factors or your critical points in order. So my critical points this time are 1, 2, 3, and 4, and those came from my factors. Okay, now I'm going to list them in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, and draw lines straight down. Now I'm going to list my factors in the same order. So the factor that goes with this is x minus 1. Okay, that goes with, over here is x minus 2, x minus 3, and x minus 4. Okay, now I'm going to start that thing of like deciding plus or minus. I'm going to pick a number over here. 0, I like 0, so I'm going to pick 0. 0 minus 1 is negative. In here I have to pick a number like maybe 1.5. 1.5 minus 1 is positive. Maybe I'm going to pick 2.5 over here. I get a positive number. Pick 3.5. Positive. Maybe I'll pick 5. I get a positive number. Okay, I'm going to start over again. I'm going to pick the same numbers up on my number line and plug them in. 0 minus 2 is negative. 1.5 minus 2 is negative. 3.5 minus 2 is positive. Sorry, that was 2.5 minus 2. 3.5 minus 2 is positive. 5 minus 2 is positive. Hopefully you start to see a pattern here. 0 minus 3 is negative. 1.5 minus 3 is negative. 2.5 minus 3 is negative. 3.5 minus 3 is positive. 5 minus 3 is positive. 0 minus 4 is negative. 1.5 minus 4. 2.5 minus 4. 3.5 minus 4. 5 minus 4. Okay, so this is good. Now I have all of my pluses and minuses. The next step is going to be to multiply them. So when I multiply 1, 2, 3, 4 negative numbers together, I get a positive number. In the next column, I have 1 positive and 3 negatives. So that's going to give me a negative. Next column, 2 positives, 2 negatives give me a positive. I get a negative there. All positives give me a positive. So now we want to go back and look which things are important to us. First of all, these all have to be open circles, right? Because we want where it's greater than, not equal to. I want to know where it's positive. So all these numbers over here give me positive answers. Numbers between 1 and 2 give me negatives. Between 2 and 3 give me positives. And bigger than 4 give me positives. And now I have to rewrite. So where x is less than 1, x is between 2 and 3, and x greater than 4. I have one last example. If you feel comfortable, go ahead and move on. If you need another example, follow along with me. I am going to list off my critical points for steps. So my critical points for this one are 1, 3, -1, -2. So I'm going to write these in order. -2, -1, 1, and 3. I'm going to draw my lines straight down and list my factors that go with this. So x plus 2, x plus 1, x minus 1, x minus 3. Now I'm going to do my plus and minus. So maybe over here I'll pick -3. -3, over here I'll pick -1.5. So that would give me a positive. Here I'll pick 0, 0, I'm sorry, 2 plus 2 is 4, and then maybe over here I'll pick 4 plus 2 is 6. Okay, so go ahead, maybe you pause and see if you can get yours to match mine. Okay, once you have it done, you're going to draw your line and determine your positives and negatives over each interval. So here I have positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. I am going to make circles at all of these because this is where it is greater than 0, not equal to. And then I want to know positive. So I'm looking for the positives. That's this way, here, and here. So this one's pretty similar, where the answer is going to be x is between -1 and 1, and x is greater than 3.